Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Oh, welcome in. Thursday, July 10th, Mike the Fantasy Hitman, Jason Moore, Andy Holloway, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Back at it, back with you. More talk about football.
Talk.
Another division.
Yep, we are in the midst of our divisional overviews, looking at the breakdown of the AFC East on today's episode.
Some say the most important division to get right.
Is that true?
You'll find out.
Okay.
No,
Just thought you had more insight than the comment.
Well, I was leaving it for the show, but we're doing the AFC East, and the Miami Dolphins are
they're definitely one of the bigger question mark weird wild card teams that exist.
You could have the overall wide receiver one on that team. You could have draft picks that you throw into a furnace because that team still can't figure out the offense.
Does it feel like they went 8-9 last year?
No.
Because they did.
It does not feel that way.
Which I believe that was the Colts record.
Correct.
That we just went over in our last episode.
Also
that
did not feel
also
that way.
did not feel that way.
But I would say that we're all probably more bullish on the Dolphins' prospects going forward than the Colts.
To be fair, I think picked the Colts to finish second in the division.
I feel like we just got kind of bullied into that.
By
Maybe.
Jason's strong arm, like, don't be chalk.
Yeah.
Well,
Don't do what they did last year or what the odds say. Do something different.
I'm guessing one of
That
us
was
at
his
least
voice.
picks
Yeah.
the Dolphins to be second in the division again this year.
We'll find out later in the show. But happy to have you with us. We got a good quick question of the show today. Quick question of the day for the show. I don't really know what's happening. We also have some news to talk about, or at least some rumors, more things to get into. The Ultimate Draft Kit, I put in some updates this morning, was going through and auditing a handful of teams, as we often do. You can see all of those updates at ultimatedraftkit.com, all of our player projections with stat projections for everybody, and the Draft Analyzer available right now as well, so you can import your team from any platform and find out what we think about it, where your strengths and weaknesses are. Other teams in your league, they get a grade now as well. And a reminder, we're 3 shows a week for the month of July. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Oh, man. Lawns stand no chance.
No, you can mow your lawn any of 3 days.
Or if you're in Arizona, spraying a little spritz on your turf.
Yeah. I mean, we don't. I guess was there value to that routine?
To which?
The mowing. I guess the value is the natural grass that is cool to the touch. And
Yeah,
doesn't burn your feet.
I have heard great things about it. I mean, like, of course, when you're young and someone brings up that, you're like, hey, yard work. No, absolutely not. I'm not doing chores. But as we've gotten older, I am a bit envious of the other dads out there that can go out there on a Saturday morning because it's nice outside.
Yep.
And then they mow their lawn.
Not here. It's nice.
No,
It's nice where they're at.
I understand
And we know
that.
we know how you stand on physical movement.
Right. Like, you're actually envious of people
course,
going out
yes.
and mowing their lawn.
Yes.
Mike, I don't know if it was a
There is value to work.
I know.
There is value to physical labor. You feel good about yourself.
Thank you. I tried to tell Jason all of this stuff
Like
last week.
someone
and he
just
was rejecting it wholeheartedly.
Someone just came out with a new ad campaign where they were proving to people like measuring endorphins. I don't know, but they're just like a measurement of something of satisfaction and feeling good, and the outcome is when you're doing chores, you actually feel better than the dopamine hits that you're getting like from social media and all this other bull crap.
Of course.
I agree completely. It's just what chores are you doing? For me,
You wouldn't even
spreadsheet
change your
work.
air filter.
Spreadsheet work
You didn't
is-
change your
you
air
can-
filter.
There is a riding mower, Jason.
All right. Okay. I'm
I
a little
mean,
bit
come
more
on.
interested.
Look, when I say I'm envious, I'm not talking about a push mower.
We
I'm
can't
talking
even
about
bully
a
him into
high-powered-
work.
Yeah, this guy.
But he does want us to give him credit for spreadsheet work.
Well, I want to work on a computer. That's where I want my work to be
You
giving
could-
me endorphins.
You could do the lawn and your computer.
Far too inspired by Wally. Far too inspired. All right, let's go ahead and jump into that quick question.
Look at those guys. They're living good lives.
Will said, do you prefer to draft backup running backs for your starters or go for guys who will get the most work if their starter goes down regardless of the team?
So I would say that there are many variables here of league size certainly matters. Because like if I'm in a 14-teamer where I know that the waiver wire is going to be thin, perhaps I am more inclined to take my insurance running backs. The issue with it is at this point, we all have our pick. We all think we know who would get the primary work should a starter miss time. Sometimes you're right about that. Sometimes you're very wrong. And you get left holding the bag of, like, I rostered this backup running back. My starter goes down. And now my backup running back isn't even the guy. And someone else ends up usurping and taking over. So that's an issue by itself. But for the most part in the draft, if I'm drafting a backup, I'm taking somebody else's because that is a ceiling play. Because if one of my opponent's starters go down and I get the true starter for that team, my team is so much better. If I get my insurance running back, it's a floor. My team stays exactly the same,
your team
or even a
should,
little bit worse.
in theory, get worse.
Yeah,
like
it
when
will.
your main starter goes down and the backup comes in, if you've got that guy, your team still got worse.
Yes.
So, yeah, I usually focus on just I don't really care whether they're on my roster or not, to be completely honest. I usually care about the actual situation. There's only, most years 3 or 4 guys where I go into that season saying I would be willing to draft that specific backup because I think that there's value should the starter go down. That's all it is for me.
Is there anyone else that you could think of top of mind besides Garendo? Because I think
that's who I was going to bring up.
People are going to be excited.
That was going to be the counterpoint to kind of some of your perspective there.
But that's just one situation.
Correct. And that's how you have to view it, situation by situation. There is not a broad brush. I mean, we get the question every year, do you draft the backups of your, how much do you prioritize the backup? Almost to the point where it's like assumed you have to get the backup. I don't think any of us subscribe to you have to get the backup.
Correct.
But there are a handful of situations that I'm not going to – if Garendo's on the board and I have CMC, I am not looking elsewhere for some other potential injury backup. I'm going to get Garendo. And that comes with the nuance of knowing that Christian McCaffrey has been banged up and hurt. And we know that Garendo can be effective and that I have confidence in that offense. Like, I'm not going to blindly draft another backup just to have a different one on my team for ceiling play.
And Shanahan has showed us that when McCaffrey's not healthy, he tends to lean on one particular running back.
Also, a lot of the reason we draft the running backs that we have are because of situations and confidence in their offense and the running game and things like that. So, my answer was kind of neither. I would prefer to spin those late flyers on a player that might have standalone value and has upside if an injury happens.
Sure.
So more of a committee, like a Tajay Spears, who we'll talk about, or we recently talked about, that kind of player.
I would say Jordan Mason.
Yeah, Jordan Mason's a great example.
If they're going to get some work in the offense anyways, and then they benefit from an injury and become a top 15 back, that's my ideal situation. Although I think Garendo in particular, I would definitely target a player dealing with Achilles tendonitis in both of your legs is a player I'm going to make sure that I'm protected. It's also relative to the investment, right? Like, there's two sides of it. There's, okay, I want the ceiling because if somebody else happens to get hurt, I got 2 good guys now, but that predicates your guy staying healthy.
Yeah.
But there's the other side. If you don't insure that back, and I mean, imagine the other situation. You have Christian McCaffrey and you go out and get a backup for somebody else. When McCaffrey gets hurt, you have a backup for somebody else and their starter isn't hurt.
Yeah.
Now you have nothing.
Of
So
course.
it's a little bit of a
And they're all insurance things. They're for what ifs. What if someone gets hurt? And then that doesn't even factor in, okay, you draft who you think. You're like, I got my insurance guy. I am locked and loaded. Now think of your bench management throughout the season. that bench spot now goes to that one player.
Yeah,
and you know what the rules of life are because
The
you're
injury
the main,
will happen
you're the
as
main
soon as you
character.
drop 'em.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why the answer to me is neither in most cases. Just get somebody that I believe will have trade value, that I believe will have opportunity, but still stands alone and doesn't just sit there like a lump on my bench just waiting for bad things to happen.
I would say this year, more than in recent years, there's not many. Like, like Jordan Mason's a great asset, but I don't view him as just an insurance back.
Yeah.
This year, when I'm looking at like who are the insurance backs that I want? Okay, Garendo, obvious situation there. Trey Benson, I think
Sure.
you've got an older, commonly injured James Conner ahead of him, and the news has been good out of camp.
I think he'd be
Would you
great.
draft Trey Benson, though, if you weren't the Connor manager? I have a hard time seeing somebody. Because
it just depends on what round
that's
you're in.
just such a waste of a bench spot for.
I mean, obviously, if there is not an injury to Connor, you're getting nothing out of him. It's a matter of how deep is the league, what round are you in, who else is available. I'm not going to take Trey Benson over Jordan Mason, who could actually be valuable.
Is Marshawn Lloyd?
But
Probably not.
I don't think so. I mean, Will Shipley, but then is it A.J. Dillon? Like,
Right.
I don't think
Kareem
there's
Hunt?
a lot of sure, is it Kareem Hunt or, they drafted a guy and they've still got Elijah Mitchell there. So
there aren't a lot.
Most of the
looking at it.
situations, there's really, I feel like it's just kind of not a factor this year.
Yeah, and another way to look at it is
Braylon Allen.
When you're drafting someone like that, you might just be setting your team up for week one. If you stay with us throughout the season and the show, we talk about in season, like, hey, these are the players on Friday that I'm going to toss on the back of my bench and let the weekend play out.
That's the best way to do it.
And then we'll get to a point in the season, because we will get these questions every single week. Is it time we start talking about how we're handling our leagues personally? Of okay, it's week whatever 8. I don't know. Like, my team's looking really good for the playoffs, and at this point, I'm looking to shape my team with some safety. I want that safety net on the team. I'm not looking for an additional ceiling player at this time. So you got to stick with the show. It's not there is absolutely no white-black binary decision for this.
Jason says it every year. We say it every year. You don't win your league at the draft. Your selection of the backup, it's really going to get hard, because if you have other injuries on your team, you cannot afford to roster somebody that you're just waiting for somebody to get hurt. But I just looked at every team. There are very few.
That's what I'm saying. Tyler Algier,
that's a good one.
Would be someone that a Bijan injury, but Bijan being so young and built for a workhorse duty, you just don't presume injury there as easy as you do with like a Saquon who's older, coming off a crazy workload.
And some of the other backs that you might want that don't profile to be the RB1 necessarily are not quite in that category of pure backup, undrafted. The Jalen Warren, Caleb Johnson situation, both will get drafted, right? And there's a lot of those. Eckler with Brian Robinson Jr., but Eckler won't go the same place that a pure backup like Algier would go. So don't over prioritize it.
Yeah,
I think that's the biggest thing. But Garendo, I would grab Garendo. I'd grab Garendo. All right, let's talk some news.
News and notes from around the league.
It's a little funny that I'm saying grab Garendo because of all the teams that have surprised us with different backups over the years when players get hurt.
Yes.
The 49ers
and that's what I mean.
Are one of them.
We assume it's Garendo right now. By the time week 1 hits, that might not be true.
All right, a little bit of news for you. Dak Prescott says he is fully healthy and will be a full participant at the start of training camp, which is great.
Good news. Have you seen him talking about George?
Yeah.
He's loving him some George Pickens right now.
Yeah, we all love George at this time of year, man. This is George's time. But I think he's got great potential with Dak. Tristan Wirfs, Buccaneers All-Pro left tackle, likely going to miss the first couple of games of the regular season. That is not something you want to hear when it comes to protecting Mr. Baker Mayfield or the runners there. Bucky Irving trying to get off to a hot start. He had surgery, Tristan Wirfs did, on his right knee on Tuesday. So pay attention to those lines. They will get him back, though. this one, it's hard to buy it, but I'll report it. Zach Jackson believes Jerome Ford is, quote, the starter for now and will still play and probably start early in the season.
That is Cleveland Browns Jerome Ford, the team that just spent a second-round pick on Quinshon Judkins.
And barely brought Jerome Ford back to this roster.
They had him take a price cut. They said, hey, you want to come back? We don't want to pay you what you're –
and he said yes because no one else will pay him.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. This is the time of year where you're always going to be like, the rookie's going to have to prove it, and then they prove it.
Judkins was the one that we said wasn't going to have to prove it, and then this report came out the next day. It's annoying.
It is something to pay attention to, though, as like we'll see if that drumbeat gets louder. Like Jerome Ford, when he's the starter, he has been quite fantasy relevant.
Yeah, it matters, and especially like for the Judkins ranking.
Yeah.
Like I personally,
it might matter more for that.
After this report, I did not change my – like I have Judkins as the week 1 starter. And if this continues up, through training camp, into preseason, and it really seems like that, obviously I will adjust those rankings. I do not take this kind of guesswork report as, this isn't coming from the head coach saying Jerome Ford's our dude.
Yeah, we're going to learn all these situations with the rookies are going to be told. We'll get a lot more information when you see who's running with the first team throughout camp and where the trust levels are and what the coaches say. And this is just stage 1 speculation, but they're all going to have to prove themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Henderson, Judkins, everyone but Genty.
Right.
Oh, he's good.
He proved it.
Yeah, he did that in college.
Yeah. All right, we are going to.
Well, I would throw in this real quick. This Joe Mixon news. I think Brooks just dropped this in for us. That there's reports that he should be ready for training camp, but he is dealing with foot ankle issues. And someone who
he was in a walking boot a couple weeks ago.
I would say he had ankle issues last year, and some of the late season decline is being called upon. You're like, hey, remember he had an ankle issue, so for it to already or still be bothering him, you got to keep an eye on it.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we're going to jump into our AFC East breakdown.
Let's get divisional.
All right, this is our 3rd episode, this time breaking down the AFC East. We're looking at those big offseason changes to the rosters, players, rookies, coaches, looking at the offenses, our expectations, and how they could function, the big questions around these 4 teams within the AFC East, and how they're going to impact your fantasy football team. And then we'll weigh in with our, order of how we think the division is going to finish. Last year, like it has for, I believe, 5 straight years.
Yep.
Buffalo wins it. 13-4 last year, a runaway division winner. And they've won the AFC East 5 straight years. Like I said, it's been a really good run. I mean, since 2019, they made the playoffs in 2019, and then they won 5 straight divisions. And so you've got 6 years in the playoffs and 6 years of falling short, coming up short. So that's been kind of hanging over the Bills now for a couple of years, getting through the AFC. Can this be the year that they get, all the way into the Super Bowl? I mean, every year it's kind of, you look at them and you look at their roster and you say, this is certainly, they're one of the favorites. That's kind of where they've been. 13-4 year. They had a projected win total last year of 10.5. It's up to 11.5 this year. Number 2 in points per game. I think last year one of the big storylines was, hey, what does Josh Allen do without Stephon Diggs? And the answer is win the MVP.
Oh, excellent.
So big questions around Buffalo have to do with fantasy players discerning value beyond Josh Allen, to me.
Yes.
Because Josh Allen, he's locked and loaded as a, you take him high in drafts if you want to. You know what you're getting with Josh Allen. But beyond that, the pass catchers, you literally don't know what you're getting because you've got players like Dalton Kincaid that are disappointed and a whole hodgepodge of wide receivers. Khalil Shakir, yes, it was kind of a breakout, but it wasn't a hugely impactful fantasy breakout. And Keon Coleman, rookie wide receiver, a lot of expectations, gets banged up, has a disappointing rookie year. They add Joshua Palmer, and then Dalton Kincaid's story has been nothing but fantasy disappointment thus far.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot
really
to love
it's a sad
from
painting
a great,
Isn't it weird?
great offense. I think it shows how good Josh Allen is, that he's got this hodgepodge of, skill position guys, and he
the
still has
hodgepodge
one of
has 2 first-round pass catchers.
Well, I'm just saying quality talent. They're trying. They're trying to, they took Keon Coleman in the first. That doesn't make Keon Coleman a really good player. He's the question mark on the Bills. He's the guy that's like, can he step up and become someone great or not? And I think most people after that rookie season were not bullish on Keon Coleman, saying like, oh, he's gonna be absolutely elite.
29 receptions. That's not a lot.
That was it?
Yeah, that was it. And I mean, he had big plays for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the news that he chipped a bone in his wrist in week 9, which is going to be, food for the excuse makers. But it is a little strange that you have like the best 3 teams, I think, in the AFC: Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
They all have
Yeah.
like a hodgepodge of pass catchers.
Man.
It's no longer the Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill dominating on the best offense.
Or Diggs, or, even Mark Andrews.
They've figured out how to piece together, once you're paying for your quarterback, just a room of people that's acceptable for your great quarterback. But for fantasy purposes, that's not great. And furthermore, I think for fantasy purposes, I worry about this offense because of how much they want to run the ball, succeed running the ball, win running the ball. You look at Josh Allen over the last several years, and yeah, he was great last year. It's fantastic. But he wasn't the quarterback 1 or 2 last year for the first time in forever. He was the quarterback 4, and he didn't throw for well over 4,000 yards like he was every year. He threw for 3,700 yards. And it's like, if the team is really good, which they project to be good, they've got the 5th easiest strength of schedule projected coming into this year. I think it's going to be more of the same, where you're not really finding super fantasy gold on this roster outside of Josh Allen being a top 5 quarterback. And hopefully you get a ton of rushing touchdowns from whichever running back you've decided to invest in.
Which is, the James Cook discussion is one to be had. Passing percentage last year, they were 29th in the NFL.
Yucky doo-doo.
In 2022, they ran it 43% of the time. 2023, they ran it 52% of the time. Last year, right at 55. So that lowers your guaranteed passing game production that you were getting week to week. It's not that he's not going to have games where it's outrageous and wonderful. That happens, but it's not as guaranteed when you pass at that level.
It's funny because right now Josh Allen is still being drafted average draft position as the number 1 quarterback, and I'm not sure he should be. I mean, obviously Lamar Jackson smoked him last year, but
I don't know.
He's my number 1.
He is not my number 1, but this isn't an anti.
I'm going to double check it. What was he through week 17? Because he didn't play the final week of the year.
Yeah, that's correct. He played the 1 snap, remember, because he wanted to keep the games streak in a row, so it messes up his fantasy finish. Because I think it was on a points per game basis, he had a couple of those dud games that they didn't need him. Baltimore, Miami on the road, single-digit performances. But plenty of number 1 overalls. And, the number that stands out to you is the total passing yardage on the season. He was a 45, 44, 42, 43, and it's 37 last year.
So
3,700.
Points per game, weeks 1 through 17, and this is a 6-point passing touchdown. He was at 26.8, QB3. Joe Burrow was 27.7 for QB2.
And Lamar,
30 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, just Lamar had an outlier year, though.
Lamar did have an outlier year, but you would expect Lamar right now to throw for more yards and run for more yards. So, that's just when you're looking at the value in a draft and you're deciding whether to take these big, expensive quarterbacks, I lean Lamar over Josh Allen right now with how the Bills as a team look like they're set up to win.
So then when you're looking at the pass catchers, do you have a pick
I would
for a guy who could actually step, like Shakir got the bag, Coleman is the second year
I mean, I would
player.
still take my shot on Coleman and hope.
Coleman over Kincaid?
Yeah,
Okay.
personally. I think, hopefully
Shakir's
Kincaid,
bag came after a wide receiver 39 season.
right. And he was
with a handful of weeks that you cared.
He was very good for this team.
Right.
And he was the wide receiver 39. I think your only hope for a fantasy difference maker is that Coleman develops into something
Special
much,
touchdowns.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
10,
I
11,
actually
12 touchdowns.
completely agree with that. I think that Coleman is the shot to take, and you're also going to – that shot's going to come in the 11th, 12th round of fantasy drafts. It's not going to come in the 7th round or the 6th round, where Shakir might represent like the best target share. I think I'm with that. I mean, I do think Dalton Kincaid is sitting there as a bounce-back candidate, personally.
A post-type sleeper?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be free. He's going to be somebody that you can take a shot at. It was not kind of bad, though. It was real bad. It was pretty useless bad kind of situation for Kincaid.
I mean, tight ends are usually, you're going to catch 70% of the balls. You're going to catch 75% of your passes. You know, the way that you're utilized, it's a lot of easy stuff. Now, there was more downfield stuff with Dalton Kincaid, but he caught 58% of his passes, and he didn't do much with. It's not like, oh, well, because he was catching 58% of his passes, he's getting 14 yards per. He's at 10 yards per reception. He was terrible, and I hope he was injured because
wasn't there something?
Yeah, there
was a report.
There was something that he was injured, but I'm just hoping it's real and not just the excuse.
He missed 3 games with the knee, but there was.
Because
something, there's a story floating around.
Watching him last year, it was just so clear he wasn't it.
And it was clear they were trying to make Dalton Kincaid happen, though. Like they kept having these designs.
It's funny because it feels like Pitts.
Sure,
it feels like Pitts
sure.
because they kept. I mean, Kyle Pitts, lots of downfield routes, try to connect to him on those stuff, but when those don't hit, you have a horrible week. But at least you have a roster of pass catchers where you have the opportunity to be maybe the best one.
Yeah,
like he could legitimately
lead the team in targets.
Yeah, you have that chance here. You don't have Diggs, and Shakir's not that intimidating, and Coleman 29 catches last year, so that's a possibility. Looking at James Cook, the big storyline for him this offseason has been touchdown regression. He had 300% times his
financial regression.
He's trying to get financial progression. Yeah. But he hasn't got it yet. But 16 rushing touchdowns.
I'd like this to return to the mean, please.
So let's be intellectually consistent here. We know how much they want to run the football. That's why you're being discouraged about certain aspects of the passing game. That is all directly translating into the value of James Cook and Ray Davis and whomever they want to get involved in the offense, Ty Johnson. So
what you just said is where the pessimism comes in, is that they have 3 running backs that are all 3 legitimately involved, not like just a sprinkling in a smidge. This is James Cook was the running back 8. Awesome. James Cook played 45% of the snaps. He's in a mega timeshare
and had 18 total touchdowns to put you at the running back 8 is troubling.
But what does that regression look like? If you're going to be a run-heavy offense where he is definitely the most talented player.
Sure.
I mean, he was almost 5 a carry last year, and these touchdowns didn't all just come in one game. You had so many of them that there were 4 games in the entire year he didn't score. So that says to me it's like he was the running back 8. He's being drafted as a running back 14. If that goes from 16 total touchdowns to, I guess he had 18 total, 16 on the ground. But if it drops to 12, which is super reasonable for a team that was number 2 in points per game,
he'll be great if it drops to 12.
But I mean,
if it drops to 7,
yes,
which I think is totally in the range of outcomes for him, considering he had what his career high was 2 before last year. Or am I misremembering that?
Crazy low.
The year before he had a higher snap percentage in total.
2
and
rushing,
went from 2 to 16.
I mean, he had 6 total touchdowns in 2023, but he had 2 on the ground. So I'm going to go look at ADP.
He's in the 4th round.
Tell me if
14.
These are the couple running backs going right before James Cook. Do you prefer James Cook over any of these guys? Let's go Kyren.
I would take Kyron.
Chase Brown.
I would take Chase Brown.
Brees.
I would take James Cook.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with everything you said.
And then directly after James Cook, Ken Bone Walker.
I would take James Cook.
I'd take James Cook.
Alvin Kamara.
Cook.
I'd probably take Cook.
Joe Mixon.
Mixon.
I would rather have Mixon at that value later in a draft.
It's the same round, though.
I would probably take Mixon ahead of Cook.
Okay.
That
so,
one's
so then
close.
ADP-wise, even though we are concerned about the regression, it seems like he's going
That's kind of
in
why
a-
I brought
in
it
a
up.
fine spot.
He's not being drafted as RB8. He's not being
Yeah.
drafted with those expectations, and you know you got to reward a player in some ways for what they do, right? Like not just. I don't like
Just not financially.
I just don't like he's got such a brief career. I don't want to just look at the first 2 seasons and be like, that's his average touchdowns per year for his career is going to be 2. Like that's not a reasonable
No, it's not.
situation. In fact, last year, one of the reasons he was a favorite in fantasy drafts was because we saw that number as ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We knew it was going to go up. But you also have to, he's a 190-pound back. So it's like he doesn't project to be a 16 rushing touchdown type of guy.
Right. So they start the year against Baltimore. That's going to be fun. I think that's the first game of the year. Or I guess
Well done, NFL.
So Baltimore at home first week, and then the Jets, Miami, and New Orleans.
He had 7 touchdowns from inside the 5.
Yeah.
Wait, who's home? Is it in Baltimore or in Buffalo?
It's in Buffalo.
Awesome.
And then it's the Jets on the road and the Miami and New Orleans at home. So, still definitely the favorites in this division. They, Sean McDermott's been there a long time, 9 years. Joe Brady continues what got them a lot of success last year. And, what is it, Brandon Beane? Is that their general manager? Am I getting the first name right here? There's too many
Correct.
Beans doing general managing.
Kyle said correct for you.
He is so annoyed with the view that they don't have the weapons they need on the offensive side of the football. And for good measure, you go out and you score the second most points in the league. You get an MVP at quarterback, you succeed, and then it's like your expectation is we got to find somebody flashier at wide receiver.
No, you got to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, you got to win a Super Bowl. So Miami 8-9 somehow last year. Their win total though before the season projected for 10 by Vegas, which they didn't accomplish this year. It's at 8.5. Does that surprise you at all? Or is it more indicative of just the AFC East? Because that's how it feels to me.
Yeah, I mean, you got the Jets and the Pats. You would think that Miami should pull out 4 wins there, at least 3.
Last year was a step back on offense, 22nd in points per game, 18th in yards per game. The big plays for Miami, they evaporated. They had only 45 total plays all year long of 20-plus yards. That is the opposite of what you expected from Miami. That was 31st in the NFL.
Cool.
So you basically became the least explosive team.
Yeah. Least explosive down the field, and then also you couldn't run the ball in the short yardage area. 31st in EPA per rush, 30th in percentage of runs stuffed at the line because their offensive line was bad.
Yeah, so for the record, the least fun team to watch most of the time last year was Miami. If you cannot run the football.
After week one was awesome. They
Yeah.
come out, Tua's looking good. He gets injured in week 2, and when he came back, it was like, please don't make me watch that.
No, it kind of reminded you of like when New Orleans was going through different quarterbacks, and you just have to watch. It just takes so long to get down the field. Yeah, and they couldn't run. So, their defense was pretty good. That's one of the reasons why they could pull off an 8-9 season.
Well, no Ramsey now.
No Ramsey, but they had Minka on that trade. Mike McDaniel, probably a hot seat coach at this point, or
For sure.
close to it, a warming seat.
Yeah, his Tuchus is a little warm.
And
Yeah.
their OC, Frank Smith.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry, Frank.
Is that like a generic name?
Yeah, it really.
Is that
like,
what tickles
no
you?
offense, Mr. Smith, but yeah, my name is Frank Smith. Sure it is. What's your real name?
I sell insurance.
Yeah, like that's my burner name.
Player subtractions this year, Johnny Smith, Raheem Mostert is gone, and they added Darren Waller.
Oh my God.
They added Nick Westbrook Akine to the wide receiver room from Tennessee, and they added Alexander Madison.
They loved Waller's tape from last year. So we got to get that guy on the team.
Yeah, supposedly Waller only wanted to play for Miami to come back.
Yeah.
So,
which is good because there were quotes about, I don't know if you remember how he ended up like walking away, deciding he doesn't want to play football. But it was basically he was in there and they were calling a bunch of run plays in a row, and he's like, why am I in here blocking? And then he's like, I don't want to play football anymore. This guy wants to, like, that was from Waller. That's
You're
what
a
he
tight
said.
end, bro.
No.
Sometimes
he's
you
a
gotta
pass
block.
catcher. He is. So the fact that he is like, I'm willing to come back, but I only want to go to Miami, makes me feel like at least, he's looking at the Jonnu Smith target machine from last year. I think he had 111 targets, something like that, and hoping that he can fill that role. Now, 33-year-old Darren Waller, who wasn't that great last time we saw him, I don't expect him to even be able to replicate Jonnu Smith from this last year. But it is worth noting, like, he might be more involved than we think in the target pecking order.
yeah, when you lose Jonnu, we've been talking about target consolidation with Waddle, Tyreek, Achane. If the storyline with Tyreek is that target consolidation does not equal more explosive plays again, and Tyreek's kind of done, then that is even more of an argument to why Waller could have a role. None of us have him ranked in a way that we're foreseeing that right now.
Correct. And just you guys might have a different opinion, but like me watching Tyreek Hill, the film, I don't look at him. I'm like, it's totally gone. Like it didn't.
I never saw anything that made me think he was gone at all.
It was such a perplexing situation of like, no, he still seems okay. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not as fast, but he still seemed fast enough to be putting up more plays than he did.
I mean, yeah, he wasn't slow, but he didn't do what Tyreek did so much every single year prior, including the year prior, which is run away from people. I know he had the wrist injury, but it's like, how does that, how does the wrist injury really cause? Maybe it was one of those things where they're not going to run him deep because a deep pass is less likely to be caught. I don't know, but once he had the ball in his hands, I felt like he was a little bit different.
He had the third fastest time in the NFL on the field last year.
I mean, it was
in week 5 hit 22.01 miles per hour, which, by the way, his teammate Devon Achane was the fourth highest at 21.93 during the season, and that's a good transition into the running game. And whether Devon Achane can be a true RB1 for your team,
yep,
yeah, he can,
and hold up.
Here,
the injury concerns are fair with Devon Achane. If you have to rely on him to that degree, any player is going to be more vulnerable for injury. But last year he did hold up.
Let me tell you the target counts for Devon Achane with Tua playing. 7 targets, 7,
I like
8,
it. Yeah.
8, 5, 4, 4, 9, 7, 7, 7. It's like call that number. But those are like outrageous.
7 targets a game is delicious.
Those are great. 29% of his routes he was targeted. That is fantasy gold. A target is worth 2.5 times a carry. And so I really I'm very bullish on Achane this year, especially the post Jonnu Smith trade.
Yeah, and they're when you talked about the quick question of the day, the backup situation with Madison there and then Jalen Wright, like theirs is a perfect example of if you have Achane, it's really tough to take a shot at who you think would be the backup because it'll be a committee if Achane went down. It won't just be one guy. We've seen that. And
Jalen Wright needs to I think Jalen Wright's he's an interesting guy to put at the back of your bench just in case in a draft and see what happens in week 1. But he will need to improve, dramatically.
Massively. And Madison was unfortunately effective.
Madison.
He's just
he's a fine player.
He can catch the football. He's like if you get the default settings in Madden for a running back and you haven't added points to anything else, you just get it's everything across the board is just regular. That's how I view Madison.
Yeah, I think that was true 2 years ago, and then one of the little bars got removed on each one of those topics of he's just a
he was
little.
Good last year. He was better last year than the year before.
He was scoring touchdowns.
I think that I don't like how the coaches talk about Alexander Madison in the positive. Like they're including him very much as like part of their plans. I don't think he's that good. I hope it's Ollie Gordon. They spent a sixth round pick on Ollie Gordon. This was a player who 2 years ago looked like he was going to be a sensational young, big-bodied running back, and then had a down year last year, fell to the 6th round. But hopefully he could do something. That would be a little bit more exciting, but I agree with the assertion that you don't have any idea who the firm backup is, and there probably isn't one should Achane go down.
Mostert and Madison just swapped spots. Did you realize that?
Yeah.
They just flipped teams to be backups on the other person's team.
Who would
Same
you rather
jersey, too.
have?
Saved to the M.
I'd rather have Mostert.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'd rather
would
have
too.
Mostert.
Even at this age.
Just because there's more clarity in that backfield, which we'll get to at some point.
No. I'm saying if you're a general manager.
Oh,
right
I thought you were
now,
saying as a fantasy
who would you rather have as the backup behind Achane?
Mostert.
Yeah, me too.
Really? He was
not great.
He was pretty bad last year.
Yeah, they're both pretty bad now.
That's why I'm hoping for Ollie Gordon.
Not Jalen Wright.
Or Jalen Wright. I mean, Jalen Wright is a 215-pound back that runs sub 4.4. I love those. He just looked he was so tremendously awful last year. No vision. Coming into year 2.
Open your eyes, man.
I hope that he figures out the scheme a little bit better, because obviously if you get the guy the ball in space, he's got the speed and the size to just take off.
If you draft Jalen Waddle at his ADP, which is the last pick of the 5th round, you are going to end the year fill in the blank.
You will end the year
pleasantly surprised. Hope. What is the new phraseology we have?
Oh, something
hopelessly.
No. Who pessimistically
happy?
I don't remember.
You as your phrase, bro.
I know, it just comes out while I black out. That's what happens.
I think Jalen Waddle at the back of the 5th, early 6th round is worth drafting.
Okay. They play Indianapolis in week 1 on the road, the New England, Buffalo, and the Jets. So divisional after the Indy game. Shall we take a break and then talk about those Jets?
We shall.
All right, let's do it. The Jets were 5-12 last year after a preseason win total of 9.5, and Aaron Rodgers' return. They started out 3-8, then the general manager got fired after week 11. This year, we've adjusted. The projected win total is 5.5. I believe that is the lowest in the division. Am I wrong? Yes. It is by far. So, new expectations, new quarterbacks, new questions around the Jets. 24th in points per game. Will they fix it with Justin Fields at quarterback? I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if they have enough personnel to really get that done, but that's why we're talking about him right now. Aaron Glenn, new head coach. Got a new offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett. Goodbye.
Oh, no.
And no more Aaron Rodgers, no more Devontae Adams, no more Tyler Conklin.
Conk.
But we replaced those 2 Hall of Famers and the tight end with Justin Fields and Josh Reynolds.
And Mason Taylor.
That's
their rookie tight end in the 2nd round, who I do think is, a late round dart throw. Tyler Conklin's vacating a lot of targets here, and they're the depth chart for pass catchers on this team. I mean, this is why I love Garrett Wilson. If you want to make the Pro Bowl case for Garrett Wilson, it's like, who are you throwing the ball to other than Garrett Wilson?
200 target case?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only thing against a 200 target, like if there was a different quarterback here, I'd probably project 200 targets for Garrett Wilson, but you know that Justin Fields is probably going to run the ball himself a lot, and they won't just have him airing it out.
Well, the way that they're going to win games this year seems like it's going to be that hard-nosed recipe of, Aaron Glenn getting in there, trusting a running game where they like multiple backs, playing defense. They were 3rd last year in total yards given up and 4th in passing yards given up, so that is their strength. And we also saw Justin Fields have success in more of a managerial quarterback situation in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to necessarily put everything on his shoulders, and that's not it just can go too many places. That's what Justin Fields' struggles were in Chicago. It was like, you got to do everything. You got to figure everything out. And yes, you may make prolific runs or plays or throws, but then you fumble and then you get sacked and then you fumble or throw a pick. And that is just too much to put on him.
I feel like it's all on him again, though. Like last year, he was very good for the Steelers, where he had a very good team around him. He had a great coach, and
it looks like he went 4-2.
Yeah, he went 4-2. Yeah, that was what was so impressive when they decided to make the switch to Russell Wilson. Was you're a 4-2 successful team, and you're going to. Russ is back and healthy, and you're going to go to Russ. And it looked brilliant at first because Russ came out on fire. They won more games.
They should have gone back.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about on the Steelers, the last 4 games were a brutal schedule. But I feel like this is Justin Fields back with the Bears, where he doesn't have the weapons around him enough to, I feel like it's all going to fall on him at the end of every game, and he's not going to be able to overcome the bad team.
So that's Justin Fields on the field. They're not projected to win very many games, but Justin Fields, the fantasy player on the Bears, was good for a time.
Yes, and I think he's going to be good for the Jets too. Last year, he was actually better than you realize. I mean, 2 years ago for the Bears, 17.7 fantasy points per game. Last year, in the 6 starts, 18.9 fantasy points per game. He was not bad, and so it's because he runs the ball 12. So freaking much.
Were you saying
I'm saying that those points would put you as a bottom of a top 12 quarterback.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And he is not being drafted there. He's being drafted as the quarterback 18. I think he's one of the most mispriced people in fantasy right now.
Well, one of the questions that come along with Justin Fields is, do you think he'll keep the job the whole year? When you're going to,
yes.
Because when you lose games, which they're going to do, it doesn't matter how well you're playing. You could get benched. You could get something could happen.
Absolutely. And I think it's an irrelevant thing when you're picking the quarterback 18 in your fantasy draft. Like when you're picking the quarterback 16, 17, 18, you're planning on streaming the position, and you're probably not going to have a full season starter. I do think that there's a good chance he starts the whole season, more so than the guys, you look at the Giants. Will Russ start the whole season? Probably not. They drafted, Jackson Dart. Here it's like it's Tyrod Taylor behind him.
Yeah, if you make a bunch of mistakes though, and it's on you to lose, that's when you could see a transition. Garrett Wilson, second most targets through 3 years in the history of the NFL, and no one to compete with him. And their head coach basically said, get him the ball as much as possible. That's their goal on offense, which has to be your goal. Breece Hall, Jason has talked about Breece Hall for 3 years with different adjectives.
Yeah, I think we've had a full traffic light with Jason talking about
red,
Breece.
yellow, green.
I think it's more green, yellow, red.
Yeah. So look, I want to say this, it wasn't efficient or as effective or impressive on film last year, but you still ended up with a season as horrible as it was for the Jets, where he still was the RB17, still can catch the football. How intimidated are you by the 3rd round draft price?
I'm very intimidated by a 3rd round draft price. I've got him as my running back 17, kind of replicating what he did last year, despite the fact that, you could see how it gets better for him. He comes more into the form that he was his sophomore year, more explosive plays. And, if that happens, he'll demand more utilization. He'll get the rock, frequently. However, all of his fantasy goodness through his short career has really been propped up by the receiving game. Mm-hmm. It's his work as a pass catcher that is what we want the most, and I worry about that transitioning from an Aaron Rodgers check down quarterback to Justin Fields, a scrambling quarterback, when it comes to the not play called, screen pass to Breece Hall, but just the improvised. How many of those a game are going to go away from Breece?
Total pass attempts if they want to win defensively.
Yeah, so I worry about Breece from that. And then there's also talk about having all of the running backs involved. You listen to Aaron Glenn, and he's saying disgusting things for fantasy football, like we have 3 starters at running back. Yeah,
it started really nice for Braylon Allen.
That's how we know he's lying, though.
First 4 games Braylon Allen played,
do not.
He was 4.8 a carry. It really slowed down. You didn't get explosive plays, and the team was terrible.
The wild thing is sophomore year, 14.9 points per game, running back for
Brees?
For Brees. Last year, 13.3 a game. Again, I know that's 1.6 per week. That adds up. But I think it's more of the expectations of last year of him being drafted as
I think he missed a game.
He did. Yeah,
so he would have been higher on that points per game, wouldn't he?
Well, no, in total points for sure. Hopefully in points per game. But
Sorry, in total points. Yeah.
He was like a top 3 running back 2 years ago. It's hard for me to remember that one.
2 years ago, he was the running back 4.
No. This past year in 2024, you drafted him as.
Oh yeah, I mean he was his average draft position was first round for sure.
So that's part of it. Is he let you down on the ADP, but
he was the RB3 by ADP.
Yeah, in actuality of a points per game. I mean,
Jason talked about him
totally
on the Dynasty podcast that we released yesterday, so you can check that out if you want a more in-depth discussion. But that's kind of the biggest question marks around the Jets. You're going to have a new scheme. You're going to have a new head coach. You're going to have some – you got a tough division. I mean, you're definitely at the bottom. I mean, you look at the Vegas odds in this division, they're like plus 1,800 to win the division. It is a massive difference between New England and Miami and obviously Buffalo, the favorite. Speaking of New England, they are sitting there projected with a Vegas win total of 8.5. Is that –
I love it.
That can't be true.
No, that absolutely should be true.
Who's got an 8.5?
New England.
No.
That can't be right.
No.
That cannot be right.
It's 8.5.
Yeah, I mean,
what?
I'll take the over.
What?
I'm reading it and I'm like,
no.
So that puts them tied.
And you're taking the over, so you're
I'm on the Patriots.
The Patriots are a 9+ win team.
They won
in
4 last year.
Yes.
Their win total was 4.5 last year. They won in week 1 and then lost 6 straight. Drake Maye took over in week 6. And this year is 8.5. They do have the second easiest schedule.
They're going to need it.
They last year were 31st in yards per game, 30th in points per game, but also had a defense that was 22nd in points per game allowed and 22nd in yards allowed. So it was bad on both sides of the ball. You get Mike Vrabel coming in. The Gerard Mayo experiment lasted a year, and Josh McDaniels makes his normal cycle around the sun, and he's back with New England for the 3rd time, I believe. You add Stephon Diggs, who we don't know for sure will be back for week 1, but should be back at some point soon. Matt Collins is also a new wide receiver addition, and they draft Travion Henderson and Kyle Williams. So they have young talent, and they have, like, we all like Drake Maye.
I think Drake Maye was unheralded last year. He played.
No one did herald him.
He played very well given his circumstances, his offensive line, or if you can call it that. The coaching, it was bad, and I thought he looked good. Like, he showed enough in his rookie season to make me believe he can take that year 2 leap forward to becoming a true franchise quarterback. You pair him with a good head coach in Mike Vrabel, who knows how to pull out games and win the close ones. This is why I'm a believer in the Patriots being – they're probably the team that I look at as, the question is always who goes from worst to first.
Right.
I don't have them going worst first because of Buffalo. But they're one of the teams that you can just see the easy progression. There's always surprising teams where it's just like they're supposed to be trash. They're supposed to be one of the worst in the league, and then all of a sudden they come out and they're like, "Oh, that's a pretty good team this year." I feel like that could be the Patriots here.
I mean, if you look at the division, if the Dolphins collapse, which is very, very possible with Mike McDaniels maybe his final year, if they collapse, the Patriots are second by default.
Yeah.
So, it was really good for Vrabel in Tennessee for 4 years. It was really kind of rough the last couple of seasons in Tennessee. But he may have the Doug Peterson effect arriving on and enlivening this team. I like what they did in the draft where they invested picks, not just in the skill positions, but on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, 8.5, it says a lot about where that division is and what the expectations are. That is 4 more wins than they were projected to get last year. And it's not like they went out and impressed last year.
No, they didn't. The offensive line, I think, should be – I mean, they spent the number 4 pick in the draft on an offensive lineman to help protect Drake Maye, and Mike, one of your favorite players.
Oh, yeah. Look, I love Travion Henderson.
Yeah, that's going to help out of the backfield.
Just to amplify your point, since 2015, at least one team every year that was drafting in the top 10 won their division or had 12 plus or 12 plus games. That's next year. So it does happen. It never sounds logical or rational right now, but it happens every year. The backfield, Javion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. I think this one's going to be tough. I know you love Travion Henderson. I think he's a very talented player. I do not think the path for him to be a week in, week out fantasy relevant player is super easy.
It is not. I get that Ramondre is entrenched. He's the starter. You know, like you can make arguments for him of, hey, they just gave him this extension last year, but they've made some changes. The crux of the argument for Travion Henderson is I think he is that much better than Ramondre Stevenson. That maybe we have Ramondre start off the first couple weeks as the guy, but I think sooner than later it switches over, and because Henderson is just the talent will put him on the field where Ramondre is just slow and lumbering and fumbles.
It's hard. It's hard. See, that description of Ramondre I think is so. It's just a product of a really, really bad season. And obviously they needed to amplify more in that room. This was the dead last, the worst offensive line in football last year, 32nd. The team won 4 games. Not conducive for a good running game. And like last offseason, Ramondre got a giant contract and had a lot of excitement around him. So in that regard, it's just, I don't want to swing the pendulum so far to where, you know, if they fix these other things that make them an 8.5 win team and make Drake Maye relevant, and you like Travion Henderson, Ramondre's going to have more success in that offense.
He could. It just, to me, this is the Rachaad White, Bucky Irving of, and it's not apples to apples because Bucky was a late round pick, but it was. I think the starter is he was the starter because he was the guy who happened to be there, and the inefficiencies will continue to show as Henderson puts up big dynamic plays, and then they make the switch.
The one thing in Ramondre's favor is the fact that Henderson is a smaller, more undersized back, and you would expect there to be a timeshare when you are paying a lot of money for another bigger-bodied back like Ramondre Stevenson. You know, the round mound of touchdown.
You're not really looking at Henderson being a 3-down every, takeover type of
correct. I don't see that happening. I mean, it didn't even happen for Jahmyr Gibbs outside of when David Montgomery was injured. So, yeah, this is I think it'll be a split backfield, and it'll probably be a split backfield for 2 years because they can't really get out of his contract this year or next year for Ramondre. I would agree with you
next year's
3.25
is what I'm seeing as dead cap.
So right now they're 2 rounds apart, though. Henderson is going 2 rounds ahead of Ramondre, which to me makes Ramondre a pinch your nose and draft in the 9th round.
Yeah, I would not.
I probably won't be either.
that would put him at so in the career worst season for him. He was still the RB27 and still was at 10.6. Like he's been at 10.6 fantasy points per game 2 straight years. So that part didn't change. I'm not saying he's explosive or exciting or fun. Probably just annoyingly productive for a late round running back is my point. Henderson is the future of this team. He's much more exciting, but I don't see any world that they just hand him the whole backfield.
If Jason's if you're in on Jason's projection of like this team completely turns things around, then yes, I could see that it could fall out that Ramondre is just annoyingly productive. You can't be like the team can't be bad and Ramondre be productive. I don't think even annoyingly productive when you have Henderson waiting to try and take over.
All right. Any final thoughts there, Jason?
I just wanted to see the schedule. My final thoughts are they play the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Panthers.
Is this the opening schedule?
They play Pittsburgh in week 3.
Yes. I'm just saying they play the Panthers this year. They play the New Orleans Saints this year, the Tennessee Titans, the Cleveland Browns. Like they're the
Second
Giants,
easiest schedule.
Obviously, this is great for hoping. I mean, Patriots fans out there, if you're hoping for something good, you got it on the schedule.
Do you have
that? Didn't tell me which guy that you.
Which player I would rather have? I would much rather have Henderson over Ramondre from a fantasy standpoint. The 7th round is already late enough where I'm taking the shot of explosiveness. I think things could get better for the Patriots, meaning more scoring opportunities for Ramondre. I do think he's going to be involved, but I also think his total workload will go down with a second round. Travion was second round? Yeah, second round.
How many
pick
touches
on
do you have
Henderson.
Travion projected for in the UDK?
Let me go pull that up.
While you do that, I mentioned Kyle Williams, drafted wide receiver, New England, has a lot of potential, ran a 4.4, 5'11", 190. We like him. Stephon Diggs, still going to be a really important player, I think, for Drake Maye's progression.
It's just win.
I think it seems like right away.
Well, yeah, we don't know because there's reports of he might have to start on the PUP. I mean, like the timeline of when he tore his ACL, I don't remember what week it was, but guys returning from ACL, it seems like he should miss time at the beginning of the year. And we see videos of guys out there running, but running on grass while no one is hitting you is so much different than a full speed NFL game. I have Henderson because I have Henderson really taking the backfield. I got him at 194 carries and 55 targets.
Yeah, I do think Stephon Diggs plays week 1 personally, and I've got Travion Henderson at 165 rushing attempts and 47 targets.
All right, well, I guess Antonio Gibson still plays for this team, huh? Still on the roster.
I think so.
Yeah, he does. A wink.
That was the wink sound.
That was I can't really just do that for an audio
Usually
podcast.
you go bing,
Yeah, that was really deep. That was a deep wink.
like a cartoon sound effect. Jay.
Wink.
Could I say it with a higher voice?
Yes.
Try it.
Antonio Gibson plays for the Patriots. Wink.
That's much better.
That's so much better.
Much
Thank
better.
you, guys. Thank you.
Wink. Yeah, see?
Oh, look at
Thank
that.
you. Good work, producers.
So then you like New England to break out, Jason?
Yes.
You like Drake Maye?
Drake Maye to me is another. He's my quarterback 12.
Okay, then somebody has to matter in the passing game.
I mean, that would be
Josh Allen says that's incorrect.
Yeah. Stephon Diggs and Kayshon Boutte are the two that I have projected as the highest in targets.
What's wild is I don't think we even know who's going to be on this team as a pass catcher.
my gosh.
I've
there's
seen
so many.
I've seen reports that Bootie's not even on the team.
That I can't.
Yeah, I mean,
fathom
Demario Douglas is on
He's
the
a
team.
lock.
Yeah.
Demario
Kyle
Douglas
Williams is
a
on the
lock.
team. Stephon Diggs is on the
Yeah,
team.
those are
and Matt
it.
Collins is on the team.
But I'm saying the three locks that I see consistently being reported is Diggs, Kyle Williams, Douglas.
Yes.
And then the rest of the spots are up for grabs.
When Drake Maye took over and became the starter, if you look at how Boutte was used, he was really, really involved down the stretch. So I would be surprised if he doesn't make the team.
And Matt
Jalen
Collins,
Polk, last year's second
yeah,
rounder.
he's gone.
Oh,
That's
my
insane.
goodness
I mean, I
gracious.
got to imagine he's gone.
Matt Collins was a 2-year, $8.4 million contract. I was just looking that up.
Mac
He came over from Buffalo. He should
and
be
they've
on the
got-
team.
Mac is a good wide receiver.
Yeah, he was good
And
for
he'll
Buffalo.
help on special teams.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, so he should be
And
there.
the level of T
oh,
on your team with Matt
super
Collins?
T. That's capital T for
Yeah.
sure. You've got
High T, no shoes.
Kendrick Bourne, Javon Baker. There's so many wide
Baker,
receivers.
Bourne, Booty. If it's a B name, you could get cut.
Yeah.
So to you though, I think Demario Douglas is just one of those players that's like, he's the Khalil Shakir of the offense.
Exactly.
He's not going to give you a huge ceiling, but if you need a spot start in a certain week, he's always going to be on the field.
He's gonna
And he's good. He's a good player.
he's a good slot
He's a
wide receiver.
PPR type of guy that's gonna, you pray, get to 10 yards of reception, but
Okay.
he'll be very targeted.
Any other shots in the passing game that you guys care about? Hunter Henry.
I mean, Hunter Henry's a fun streaming tight end from time to time, but
Still going to need the offensive line to be better than 32nd in the league.
For sure.
Which, I mean, that's going to have to get proven out on the field. If they're a bad offensive line, this team is going to hit their under on that win total.
They will be a bad offensive line. They don't have enough personnel. I mean, obviously, Will Anderson being drafted at 4 overall, that will help. But
Will Campbell?
I'm sorry, Will Campbell.
I
yes.
was like, how is he going to spin Will Anderson into this conversation?
Will Anderson, Alabama superstar that the Cardinals should have drafted. But no, Will Campbell, the tackle, he'll help. But it reminds me a lot of like the Texans last year, where you had Laramie Tunsil, awesome, but then the rest of your line was such trash that you still had a bad line.
Who wins the division?
Buffalo.
All right, we all got Buffalo at the top. Give me the rest.
You know I'm taking the Patriots second.
Okay.
Dolphins, Jets.
I'm going to go.
Which, by the way, in case you're curious, chalk.
Oh.
Is that chalk?
Yes,
That's what Vegas
that's
says?
chalk. Yeah, you're a chalk guy.
Okay. Well, it's different
You're
and new
Mr.
from
Chalk.
last year. Why
No,
don't you
I
just
mean-
pick whatever they did last year? What's your order, Andy?
It's tough to decide between Miami and New England. I think I'll go Buffalo, Miami, New England, New York.
Chalk last year.
I'm going to go Buffalo, New York Jets, Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots.
This guy can't quit, Justin.
Wait,
Fields.
hit that
He
hit
just
that
can't-
hit
he
that
can't
sound
quit it.
effect.
What I can't quit is
There it is.
what I
Sure.
can't quit is a already great defense, and then you bring in a defensive guy. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty to watch, but I think that
You're saying they bring in a defensive guy at head coach?
Yeah.
Replacing a defensive guy at head
a
coach?
guy who actually I believe in.
Okay.
It's funny they 3 out of 4 in the division are defensive head coaches. McDermott's a defensive head coach.
Yeah.
Aaron Glenn now a defensive head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Vrabel a defensive head coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So Mike McDaniels is really
Out of
the
place.
cheese stands alone.
Yeah.
Come
and
on.
if you put
Come on,
those,
dude, Mike, you got to do something in Miami. You can't make us offensive people look bad again.
Rex Ryan's looking for a job.
Oh,
All right.
boy, you could play that sound for Rex Ryan with them.
oh yeah, that is him smiling for sure.
It's the light caressing off of the chompers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I think that's going to wrap it up for today's divisional breakdown. But don't worry, 3 shows a week means we've got a show in just 2 days, and then we'll have another mock draft episode, I believe, coming up next Tuesday. So we'll do another divisional breakdown. We'll do a mock draft, and we'll get back into the divisional shows as well. Check out the draft kit. It's the #1 way to win at your draft. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you have a game plan. Make sure you know what to do. All of our sleepers, breakouts, busts, and values available in there, along with innumerable other resources to help
that's
you.
so many.
Help you handle your business on draft day. So that is going to do it for today. Shout out to Deucer's Alley, everybody over there taking care of business. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll be back with another episode on Saturday. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.